Welcome. Today I'd like to talk to you about the Electoral College and kind of take an opportunity to explain how the Electoral College works, how it benefits the country as a whole, and dissuade some misinformation that often results in everybody thinking it's a conspiracy or that it's unfair. And I think when we're done with this presentation, you're going to see clearly why it is fair. So here's how it works. There's a total of 538 votes in the Electoral College. And here's how it's determined that we have 538 votes in the Electoral College. The Senate has 100 members in the Senate, 2 for each state, okay? So that's how they determine the 100. Then you have 1 representative for each House seat, for a total of 535. Now, because DC is in the mix and they don't have the Senate or House representative, they're awarded 3 seats, and this comes to 538 seats. What's important to understand is the Electoral College is based on population, okay? So when we look at some of the more populated states like California, Texas, New York, Pennsylvania, Florida, Ohio, Michigan, you look at California's 55, Texas 34, New York 31, Pennsylvania 21, Florida 27, Ohio 20, and Michigan 17. Those are very populated areas, okay? So they have a few more seats. Now when we look at the electoral map, we see some of the other states only have 3 seats, 6 seats, 10 seats, 12 seats, okay? What the Electoral College does, and that whole Electoral College system does, is it kind of forces the candidates to look at those other seats, because you're not going to get the majority of those seats without going to those locations. It prevents these heavily populated areas from controlling a presidential election. So what's the majority? Simple math. If you come down and you look, we have a magic number of 270 Electoral College votes that we need to hit. What is that? That's often referred to as the race to 270. Okay? That's the magic number. Here's what we could possibly see. Now we throw a third party into the mix. It's very possible that nobody gets that 270 mark. 269, okay? And maybe the third party got the remainders of the seats. What do we do in that case? It's a tie. That's when it comes back to the House to vote, okay? And they vote on who the next president is. So here's another question. How does the state break down and determine who gets the vote, who gets the Electoral College seats? And here's an example, okay? If a Democrat only receives 49% and a Republican receives 44%, and say a third-party independent candidate receives 7%, this is where a lot of people get mixed up. They didn't get over the majority. What happens is, because they receive a higher percentage, the state will award their delegate to the Democratic Party to cast all of their votes for that candidate. There's an exception to this rule, and actually 2. The state of Maine and the state of Nebraska. Maine has 4 seats, Nebraska has 5. Their seats, their electors are awarded according to congressional districts and who won those congressional districts. So you could actually see Maine award 1 seat to one party and then 3 seats to another party. Or Nebraska, likewise, they could break down that vote. Those are the only 2 exceptions to the rule. So what we saw in this election cycle is we saw a lead in the popular vote until the 11th hour, where even Trump or the Republican candidate was above the 270 vote, but he also was leading with a higher majority vote, or popular vote, okay? Now, keeping in mind, the polls close 3 hours later in California, so the popular vote tended to creep up because California is a more Democratic friendly state, and that West Coast region is. So we saw that popular vote go up. Now, had we awarded the presidency based on popular vote, now you can kind of see how that region could very easily take control over the presidential selection process. That's what the Electoral College prevents, okay? Plus you factor in absentee ballots. They tend to roll in a little bit later, and we've seen over the last several days after the election was over, fluctuations in the popular vote, okay? It's probably not going to change the electoral count, but at this point in this election in 2016, the Republican candidate exceeds that 270 vote significantly. This whole system was set up by our forefathers exclusively to prevent one geographical region from having more control over the selection process, to ensure that fair representation occurred across the board, across the United States. That's why we have it, and that's how it works. Hopefully I've explained this in a fashion that can be easily understood, but it really is not complex. It's pretty basic, and I think understanding that, you can understand how the process is set up and not feel as many jitters as to why we've arrived at the decision. Now, the important thing is in December, that's when the Electoral College meets. That's the deadline. And then the vote is certified. And off we go to Inauguration Day. Again, thank you.